This story is a powerful exploration of enduring love, quiet compassion, and the profound realization that healing isn't about forgetting, it's about making space for hope to return. It's a testament to the idea that sometimes the people who enter our lives unexpectedly are the ones who help us find our missing pieces and teach us how to finally, truly breathe again. This story begins with the quiet, tender moments of an American small-town family facing an emotional shift, capturing the warmth, brokenness, and unspoken love that shape their lives before tragedy arrives. In the small American town of Willow Ridge, where autumn leaves turned the streets into golden rivers and neighbors still waved from their porches, the Carter family lived in a little blue house at the end of Maple Street. From the outside, the home looked ordinary. A freshly painted porch swing, a garden filled with Mom's favorite white tulips, a wind chime that played a soft melody whenever the evening breeze passed through. But inside the house, silence had begun to settle like dust. It started slowly, a missed breakfast together, a small argument left unresolved, a door closed a little too hard. The Carters were still a family, still loving, still trying, but something had shifted in the air. Something unspoken, something fragile. Mark Carter, the father, felt it first. He noticed how his wife, Emily, lingered by the kitchen window longer than she used to, staring at the road as if waiting for someone who was always late. She moved slower these days, her breath catching in moments she pretended were nothing. But Mark had spent 20 years watching her face shift like seasons. He knew her storms long before she admitted them. He wished she would talk to him. He wished he knew how to ask. Their daughter, 12-year-old Lily, felt it too. She sensed it in the way her parents hugged her a little tighter, or in how the laughter around the dinner table seemed to float up and fade too quickly. Lily didn't understand what was happening, but children often feel the truth before adults speak it. And then there was Ethan, their 8-year-old son, who still believed every problem could be fixed with a joke or a messy crayon drawing. He noticed nothing, or maybe he noticed everything, but chose to color over the sadness, like kids often do. One late October afternoon, the four of them gathered in the backyard for their yearly pumpkin carving tradition. The sky was soft orange, the same shade as the pumpkins lined up on the wooden table. The air smelled like cinnamon and dried leaves. For a moment, things felt normal again. "Mine is going to be the scariest pumpkin ever," Ethan declared proudly, holding his plastic carving knife like a warrior. "Last year, your pumpkin had one eye," Lily teased. "It was symbolic," Ethan argued. "You wouldn't understand." Mark laughed, a real laugh, warm enough to break the quiet that had been tightening around the house. He reached over and ruffled Ethan's hair. "Buddy, symbolic or not, let's try for 2 eyes this time." Emily smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Mark noticed. He always did. As they carved, he kept glancing at her. The way her hands trembled, the way she paused every few minutes to press a hand to her chest, the pale shade under her skin. He swallowed hard. He knew what she had not yet told the kids. The doctor's words still echoed in his head, heavy as bricks. "It's aggressive. We have a few options, but time will matter most." He had held her hand in that cold doctor's office, knowing the world had changed with a single sentence. But now, sitting in the backyard with their children carving pumpkins, he wished he could freeze time. Just hold this moment before it slipped through his fingers. Later that evening, after the kids went inside, the sky deepened into a quiet navy blue, and the backyard lights flickered like fireflies. Emily stayed on the porch swing, wrapped in the knitted blanket her mother had made years ago. Mark stepped outside to join her. "You did good today," he said softly, sitting beside her. "I'm tired," she whispered, "more than I expected." Mark took her hand. "We can tell them tomorrow, only if you're ready." She closed her eyes. "I don't want tomorrow to come." He pulled her closer, feeling her ribs beneath his arm like he was holding something far too delicate. "We'll get through it," he said, though his voice cracked. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Promise me something. Anything. Don't let the kids remember me sick. Help them remember this. Tonight, the pumpkins, the laughter, us." Her voice trembled. "Promise me they'll remember love, not pain." Mark's throat tightened. "I promise." He meant it with everything he had left. A long silence stretched between them, not heavy, but tender. A silence filled with everything they didn't know how to say. Inside the house, Lily stood by the window, watching her parents on the porch swing. She couldn't hear their words, but she didn't need to. Something in the way her mother leaned against her father made her chest ache. "Are they fighting again?" Ethan asked from behind her, holding his stuffed dinosaur by the leg. "No," Lily said softly. "Not this time." "Then why do they look sad?" Lily didn't answer, because she didn't know, because she feared she did. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the kitchen window, painting soft stripes across the table. The smell of pancakes, the kind Emily made only on special days, filled the room. Ethan bounded down the stairs. "Pancakes? On a school day? What's the occasion?" Emily forced a smile. "I just wanted to make something nice for you." Lily noticed again. The way her mother touched her side. The way her father's eyes followed her with constant worry. When they finished breakfast, Mark cleared his throat, looking at the kids with a sorrow he could no longer hide. "Sit down," he said gently. "We need to talk." Emily reached for his hand. He squeezed her fingers, steadying her trembling ones. The kids sat, confused. Lily's heart pounded. Ethan swung his feet under the chair, unaware. Emily took a shaky breath. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Mommy's sick, and it's not the kind that goes away quickly." Lily froze. Ethan blinked. "Like a cold?" Mark shook his head. "Nobody, it's more serious." The silence that followed was unlike any silence before it. It wasn't empty, it was full. Full of fear, full of tears, full of a pain that wrapped around the little blue house and squeezed. Lily looked at her mother, her eyes filling. "Are you going to get better?" Emily reached out, brushing a tear from her daughter's cheek. "I'm going to try," she whispered. "I'm going to try with everything I have." Ethan climbed into her lap, burying his face in her neck. "You're not allowed to go anywhere. You're our mom." Emily held him tighter than she ever had. Mark looked at his family, his heart breaking, knowing this was only the beginning. This was the silence before the first goodbye, and nothing would ever be the same again. This section reveals the emotional wounds, the unforgettable memories, and the hidden regrets carried by the characters as they try to navigate the world after losing the person who held them together. Winter came early to Willow Ridge that year. Snow settled softly over the rooftops, blanketing the town in a fragile stillness, as if even nature understood the Carters needed quiet. After Emily's passing, the little blue house at the end of Maple Street stood like a memory trying not to collapse under its own weight. Inside, every room felt different, not empty, just full of her. Her laughter lived in the corridors, her scent lingered in the hallway, her touch remained on the walls, in the blankets, in the corners she once kept warm. And every night when the wind chimes echoed outside, it sounded like her voice calling from somewhere far away, yet impossibly close. Mark Carter walked through the house like a man learning how to breathe again. His footsteps were slower, heavier, as though he feared stepping too hard might erase the memories she left behind. He tried to return to work, to routine, to conversation, but grief had settled in his chest like winter frost. Even the smallest moments hurt the most. Her mug still sat near the sink, stained with the last tea she never finished. Her sweater remained draped across the couch. Her shoes stayed by the door, exactly where she left them the night before she got too weak to walk. Mark couldn't move them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. He would lie awake at night replaying their final days, the way her hand felt smaller when he held it, the way her voice softened into almost nothing, the way she looked at him with a fear she tried to hide for the kid's sake. The memory of her last words followed him everywhere. "Promise me they'll be okay, Mark. Promise me you'll live, not just survive." He wanted to promise. He wanted to believe he could, but the house was too quiet now, and he felt like a man trapped between memories and mourning. Lily, at 13, understood too much and too little all at once. She became quiet after her mother died, not distant, just filled with a sadness she didn't know how to carry. She stopped sitting at the kitchen table in the mornings because the empty chair beside her felt like a scar. Her friends tried to pull her back into laughter, but she found it difficult to fit into her old life. Music class reminded her of her mother humming along to the radio. School hallways echoed with voices that didn't sound like hers anymore. Every night she opened the memory box her mother created for her, a small wooden chest with a sunflower engraved on top. Inside were tiny fragments of a life built on love, a seashell from their beach trip, a handwritten note, "Be brave, my Lily," a tiny silver bracelet, a photo of them baking cookies, flour on their noses, a folded letter Lily never opened because she wasn't ready to see her mother's handwriting say goodbye. Sometimes she held the bracelet so tightly it left marks on her palms. It made the grief feel real. It made her feel closer to the mother she missed more than she could say. She didn't cry often, but when she did, it was always late at night, when she was sure no one could hear. What she didn't know was that Mark stood outside her door many of those nights, listening, wishing he could fix what he couldn't. Ethan, just 8 years old, carried grief differently. He didn't understand forever. He asked questions daily. When is Mom coming back? Is heaven close to here? Why did she have to go? Did I do something wrong? Every time Mark's heart cracked open, he knelt down, held his small shoulders, and answered with the only truth he knew. "No, buddy, you did everything right. Mom loved you more than anything." But Ethan still slept with her pillow every night, still waited for her voice, still whispered to the framed photo on his nightstand. In school, he drew pictures of a tall woman with yellow hair and angel wings. His teacher sent them home to Mark with quiet sympathy. And inside the house,
Ethan kept leaving space on the couch for her, because children often believe love can bend reality if they wish hard enough. The Carters weren't the only ones grieving. The entire community had felt the loss. Emily wasn't just a mother or wife. She was the woman who baked cookies for every neighborhood child, brought soup to sick neighbors, and remembered birthdays even when she couldn't remember her own grocery list. People brought casseroles and pies for weeks after the funeral, but food couldn't fill the emptiness she left. One evening, Mrs. Henderson from across the street stopped by with a tray of lasagna. Mark thanked her politely, though he had no appetite. "You don't have to do this," he said. She placed a gentle hand on his arm. "We're not doing it because you need food. We're doing it because you need reminding you're not alone." Mark swallowed hard. For the first time in days, he believed her. But grief has a strange way of returning when the world assumes you've healed. One morning, as Mark walked past the bedroom they once shared, he found Lily sitting on the floor surrounded by photographs. Her eyes were swollen. Her hair was messy. She looked like a heart still learning how to beat. She held a photo of Emily holding baby Ethan, their faces bright with joy. "I forgot her voice today," Lily whispered. "I tried to remember how she sounded when she laughed, and I couldn't. I'm losing her." Mark knelt beside her. He gently pulled her into his arms. "You're not losing her," he said softly. "Memory changes, but love doesn't fade. She's here, Lily. She's in you." "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I," he admitted. They cried together on the bedroom floor, surrounded by pieces of a woman who had been their entire world. One night, after everyone had gone to bed, Mark found himself sitting on the porch swing, the swing where he and Emily had shared their final quiet moments. He closed his eyes, feeling the weight of memory settle on him like a winter coat. The world had moved forward, but he felt stuck, caught between what was and what would never be again. He whispered into the cold air, "I don't know how to do this without you." The wind chime answered with a gentle melody. And for a moment, just a moment, he felt her beside him. Not as a ghost, not as a memory, but as a presence woven into the fabric of his life, soft and impossible to erase. In the weeks that followed, the Carters tried to reshape their world. They hung her photos on the walls, not to remind them of loss, but to remember the love. They cooked her favorite meals again, even when they tasted too much like longing. They planted tulips in the garden, white ones just like she loved. Grief didn't leave, but it softened. Pain didn't disappear, but it learned to breathe. And through it all, the memories remained, not fading, not hurting less, but becoming something gentler, something that held them together when they felt most alone. They were living with the ache of a love that didn't end, and slowly, quietly, they began to understand. Some memories don't fade because they're not meant to. They're meant to guide you home.
A mysterious new presence enters the story, someone who understands the family's grief in ways they never expected, slowly helping them heal through empathy, connection, and unexpected kindness. Spring returned to Willow Ridge with hesitant warmth, as if unsure whether the town was ready to feel sunlight again. The snow melted from the rooftops, tulips began to push through the soil, and the little blue house on Maple Street started to look alive, even if the people inside it were still learning how to be. It was on one such morning, when the sky was clear enough to see the mountains far beyond the tree line, that Mark Carter first noticed the stranger. He was standing across the street, hands in his jacket pockets, looking at the Carter house with a quiet, almost reverent expression. He wasn't staring in an intrusive way, more like someone recognizing a place that once meant something. Mark assumed he was a passerby. Willow Ridge wasn't big, but tourists sometimes wandered through town to see the old railway line or the historical courthouse. Yet something about the man made Mark pause. He was in his mid-40s, maybe slightly older, wearing a worn brown coat and carrying a backpack that had seen many miles. His dark hair showed hints of gray, and his eyes held the type of sorrow that only comes from long, unfinished stories. When he noticed Mark watching, the man nodded gently, almost apologetically, and then he walked away. At dinner that night, Mark mentioned the stranger. "Probably someone lost," Lily said without looking up from her homework. "Or a spy," Ethan added, stuffing mashed potatoes into his mouth. "Mom always said spies don't wear black suits. They dress normal." Mark and Lily exchanged a tired smile. Ethan tried so hard to keep the family light, even with the weight he didn't fully understand. But Lily's eyes lingered on her father's face. "You think he knew Mom?" she asked quietly. Mark didn't have an answer. The next afternoon, the stranger appeared again, this time at the small bookstore downtown where Emily used to work on weekends. Mark was picking up a book Lily needed for school when he saw the man standing in the aisle marked Local Authors and Poetry, Emily's favorite section. Mark hesitated before walking over. "Can I help you find something?" The man turned, surprised, but smiled. "I wasn't looking for anything specific. Actually, maybe I was." There was something familiar about his voice, soft yet carrying a certain depth. "I'm Mark," he offered reluctantly. The man nodded. "I know." He extended a hand. "My name is Daniel." Mark froze. Not at the name itself, but at the way Daniel said, "I know." It wasn't arrogant. It wasn't strange. It was intentional. "Do we know each other?" Mark asked reluctantly. Daniel shook his head slowly. "No, but I knew your wife." The words hit Mark like a gust of cold air. "Knew Emily?" he repeated, barely steady. Daniel's eyes softened with a grief Mark recognized instantly. "Yes, a long time ago." They walked outside together, a quiet understanding forming between them, even though they were strangers meeting for the first time. "How did you know her?" Mark finally asked. Daniel took a deep breath. "She helped me once, years ago. I was going through something difficult, and she saved my life in a way I didn't fully understand until much later." He looked down at his hands, as if the memory hurt and healed him at the same time. "I found out she passed away. I came to town because I guess I needed to say thank you, even if she's gone." Mark felt his throat tighten. Emily had always been that way, quietly saving people without ever mentioning it. "What did she do?" Mark asked. Daniel gave a small, heartfelt smile. "She listened." Sometimes Mark thought that was enough to save someone. Over the next few weeks, Daniel became a quiet but constant presence in Willow Ridge. He didn't intrude. He didn't overstay. He simply appeared at moments when someone needed a hand or a conversation or a little bit of warmth. He helped Mrs. Henderson carry groceries to her porch. He fixed a broken fence for the young couple on Birch Street. He volunteered at the library on Saturdays. He brought tulip bulbs to the community garden, a kind Emily would have chosen. The town grew fond of him quickly. But it was the Carter children who connected with him most. One afternoon, Daniel found Ethan sitting alone at the park, holding a kite that wouldn't fly. "It's broken," he muttered. Daniel crouched beside him. "May I see?" Within minutes, Daniel had fixed the frayed string and adjusted the wooden frame. "How did you do that?" Ethan asked, eyes wide. "I used to fly kites with my little sister," Daniel said gently. "It's been a long time." Together,
They ran across the grass until the kite rose into the sky, dancing against the blue. As Ethan laughed, really laughed, Daniel felt something shift inside him, a feeling he hadn't let himself experience in years. Hope. Lily, who trusted slowly now, watched Daniel from a distance for days before speaking to him. She found him at the bookstore again, reading a poetry collection Emily had loved. Lily approached, holding a book she pretended to examine. "You knew my mom?" she said quietly. Daniel closed the book, turning to her with kind eyes. Yes, she was someone who cared more than people realized. Lily hesitated. What was she like before she got sick? Daniel smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. She had a way of making people feel seen, and she believed that even small acts of kindness could change someone's whole world. Lily swallowed hard. I miss her. Daniel nodded gently. I miss her too, but missing someone is proof they mattered. For the first time in months, Lily didn't feel like her grief was a burden. Mark, watching all of this unfold, found himself drawn to Daniel in ways he didn't understand. Not as a replacement, not as someone stepping into Emily's place, but as someone who carried a part of her story, pieces Mark never knew existed. One evening, the two men stood on the porch, the wind chimes singing softly above them. You remind them of her, Mark said quietly. Not in the way you look or talk, just the way you are. Daniel stared at the sunset. She changed the course of my life, he whispered. When I met her, I was at my lowest point, and she told me something I never forgot. Mark turned. What was it? Daniel's voice trembled. You're allowed to begin again. Mark felt tears burn behind his eyes. She said that to you too, didn't she? Daniel asked gently. Yes, Mark whispered. She said it the night before His voice cracked. Daniel didn't finish the sentence for him. I think she'd want you to know she was right. You don't have to forget her to keep living. The wind rustled the tulips below the porch, white ones, blooming early this year. As spring deepened, the Carter house began to feel lighter. Not healed, not whole, but alive again. Ethan slept through the night for the first time in months. Lily smiled more. Mark breathed without his chest tightening every minute. Daniel never tried to replace anything missing. He simply filled the cracks with presence, compassion, and quiet understanding. The kind that only someone who had been broken before could offer. The kind that reminded the Carters they were still allowed to hope. Because sometimes the people who enter our lives unexpectedly are the ones who help us find our missing pieces.
The final section brings emotional closure, where truth, forgiveness, and long-buried hope rise again, guiding the family toward a healing that feels earned, profound, and deeply heart-touching for USA audiences. The winter sun hung low over Willow Creek, as if it too had grown tired of holding itself together. In the small blue house at the end of Bramble Street, the Dawson family, Eleanor, Mark, and 12-year-old Grace, stood in the living room where so much broken time had gathered silently in the corners. For 3 long years, their home had felt like a museum of unfinished conversations, a place where every sigh echoed a memory, and every quiet moment carried the weight of absence. Her name had been Lily, wife, mother, the center of their small universe, and though seasons had changed, though birthdays had passed, though people gently encouraged them to move on, the home never felt alive again after she left. But today was different, because today they weren't alone. At the heart of the living room stood Rowan Hart, the quiet stranger who'd entered their lives only months ago, yet somehow knew the language of their grief better than anyone else ever had.
He wasn't family, he wasn't a therapist, he wasn't even a neighbor. He was simply someone who had been passing through Willow Creek, someone who understood that sometimes all a wounded home needs is the presence of someone who listens without judgment. And slowly, very slowly, the Dawsons had begun to breathe again. A house heavy with silence. Eleanor crossed her arms gently, her fingers gripping her elbows the way someone holds themselves together when they're afraid of falling apart. Her husband Mark stood beside her, trying to appear steady, though his eyes flickered with the same fragile uncertainty that lived in his wife. Grace sat cross-legged on the carpet, watching Rowan with a mixture of curiosity and trust that surprised her parents. She was never this open with strangers, but Rowan wasn't like other people. He didn't tiptoe around grief. He stepped into its shadow and warmed it with compassion. "You sure you want to do this?" Mark asked, voice low. Rowan nodded softly, "Only if you're ready." They weren't ready, not fully, but they were ready enough. Rowan had suggested something simple, something strange maybe, but something healing. A memory ceremony, not spiritual, not religious, just an intentional release of stories and silence that had been locked away for too long. Eleanor looked around the room. Everything still looked the way Lily had left it. Her favorite blanket draped over the couch, her half-finished painting leaning against the wall, her handwriting still pinned on the refrigerator. "Back in 10 minutes, don't burn your soup." It had been 1,095 days. 10 minutes had turned into forever. The first breath. Rowan sat on the floor, crossing his legs, like someone settling into a conversation with time itself. He said, "Let's start with something small. What's one thing Lily would notice right away if she walked into this room?" Eleanor exhaled shakily. She'd say the flowers on the dining table are dying again. Her voice wobbled. "She always said I forgot to water them." Mark chuckled, the sound rusky. She'd probably say, "Mark, stop rearranging the furniture. It looks perfectly fine." Grace smiled. She'd say, "Dad's haircut is still terrible." Mark placed a hand over his heart dramatically. "Brutal, just like your mother." The room softened, not with joy, not yet, but with breath. Breath that the house had held back for years. Rowan watched them, not intruding, not leading, just holding the space open. "And what would she say to you, Grace?" he asked gently. Grace lowered her head. Her voice was quiet, trembling. She'd say, "I'm taller." She swallowed. "And that she's proud of me." A silence fell, warm and heavy. "She would be. She still is," Rowan whispered. "You talk like you knew her." Eleanor wiped her eyes. Rowan looked down, rubbing his thumb on the bracelet on his wrist. "I didn't, but I know what it's like to lose someone who felt like the glue of your entire world." The room breathed again. A house that wanted to feel alive. As the afternoon light dimmed, they moved through the house together. First the living room, then the hallway, then Lily's old art corner, untouched, frozen. Grace stopped there, kneeling beside a dried paintbrush. "I didn't want to change anything," she whispered. "I thought if I kept it the same, she'd come back for it." Rowan crouched beside her. "Keeping something frozen doesn't protect the memory. It traps it." He touched the brush gently. "You don't need everything to stay the same. You just need the love to stay." Grace nodded softly. Then Rowan did something unexpected. He dipped the old paintbrush into water, restoring its bristles, and placed it into Grace's hand. "Finish the painting," he said. "Not the way she would have, but the way you would have, with her in your heart." Grace nodded, tears dripping silently. As she painted, small strokes, slow strokes, Eleanor and Mark watched their daughter as if seeing her for the first time in years. And something loosened in Eleanor's chest, something she didn't know she'd been gripping for too long. "She's really healing," Eleanor whispered. Rowan shook his head gently. "You all are." When the walls let go. Later that evening, they gathered in the backyard where Lily used to grow lavender. The winter air was crisp, the sky turning navy. Rowan handed each of them a small slip of paper. "Write one thing," he said, "that you want to let go of, not because it wasn't important, but because you've carried it long enough." Eleanor wrote, "The guilt of not being able to save you." Mark wrote, "The fear that moving on means forgetting you." Grace wrote, "The pain of not getting to say goodbye." Rowan stood quietly, his breath visible in the cold air. "My turn," he murmured. His paper read, "The burden of thinking I deserved to stay broken." They looked at him, really looked at him, and something clicked. Rowan wasn't just here to help them heal, he was healing too, through them, with them. Together, they placed their papers into a small lantern. Mark lit the candle. The lantern rose slowly, lifting into the winter sky like a small glowing soul finally freed. Eleanor leaned into Mark. Grace held Rowan's hand. And for the first time in 3 years, the Dawson family felt something they thought they had lost forever: hope. The home that finally learned to breathe again. A week passed, then 2, then 3. Rowan stayed a little longer, helping paint the kitchen, rearranging Lily's art corner so it became a shared space rather than a shrine, cooking meals that filled the home with warmth instead of silence. One evening, Grace burst into the living room with her painting, the one she had finished. It showed a family of 4 holding hands under a glowing sky. In the center was Lily, painted softly, her dress blending with the colors of the light. But beside them, quiet, humble, almost fading into the background, was Rowan. "You painted him too?" Eleanor asked softly. Grace nodded. "Because he brought the light back." Rowan's eyes shimmered. "I won't be here forever," he whispered. "We know," Mark said, "but you'll always be part of what this home became." Rowan placed a hand on the wall, feeling its warmth, different from the first time he'd walked in. "It's breathing again," he said. Eleanor touched his shoulder. "So are we." When the last light came home, on Rowan's final day in Willow Creek, the Dawson family stood outside with him. He hugged each of them tightly, Eleanor's trembling arms, Mark's steady grip, Grace's soft sob against his chest. "You saved us," Eleanor whispered. "No," Rowan said gently. "I just reminded you of something you already had, the ability to keep loving after loss." Grace looked up at him, tears glistening. "Will you come back?" Rowan smiled softly. "Homes like this, they never leave you." "Not really." He walked down the snowy street, boots crunching quietly, until he turned the corner and was gone. The Dawson family stood together, watching the space where he had disappeared. And for the first time in a long time, their home